Hello everybody, I'm Janine Adams. I'm from the Nelson Mandela University and I currently hold the NRF DSI Research Chair in Shallow Water Ecosystems. I'm also the Deputy Director of our university's Institute for Coastal and Marine Research, and our institute consists of about 300 members. My research interests are estuary conservation and management that includes restoration. We also look at blue carbon ecosystems and their responses to climate change and water quality management. My talk today is on the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. This has focused our attention to restoration nationally and internationally. The decade is from 2021 to 2030, and it's ecosystem restoration for people, nature, and climate. Restoration takes place through ecosystem-based approaches to meet societal challenges and to ensure human well-being and biodiversity benefits. There's a global call for restoration. And as the UN Secretary said last year, making peace with nature is the defining task of the 21st century. It must be the top priority for everyone, everywhere. So I will talk a little bit about South African estuaries and restoration of these important habitats. Nationally, along our 3,000-kilometer coastline, we have approximately 290 estuaries. Our coastline is wave-dominated, the estuaries are microtidal, and they're small in global comparison. They're shallow, and 75% of them close to the sea. They are complex, dynamic, and productive ecosystems. It's where the river meets the sea, there's a gradient of salinity, and because of this, we have very high biodiversity. They're highly productive, dynamic ecosystems. Along our coastline, we also have different biogeographic zones, from the cool temperate to the warm temperate, tropical, subtropical to tropical, and this also contributes to the unique biodiversity of our estuaries. We have a blueprint for managing estuaries in the country, and this is the National Estuary Management Protocol. We need to manage estuaries cooperatively through all spheres of government. We need to engage the private sector, entities, and civil society. We need to protect a representative sample of estuaries to meet biodiversity targets. And importantly, and the topic now on restoration, we need to maintain or restore ecological integrity. So how do we know where to prioritize restoration activities? We have the National Biodiversity Assessment, and on 3 occasions now, we have determined the present ecological status of our estuaries around the country. So we know where our estuaries occur from unmodified to extremely degraded systems. And no surprises, you'll see the red dots, the degraded systems around our major city centres or where there's a high intensity of coastal development. So this assessment of the present ecological status using the Estuary Health Index gives us our condition of the estuary from A to F. And according to the National Water Act, we can't have systems in an EF. Even if an estuary is in a D category, largely modified, we should be implementing actions to restore it to at least a C, a moderately modified system. We have a very good understanding of the pressures influencing our estuaries, the degree to which these pressures have influenced the different systems, and how we can mitigate some of these impacts. So estuaries are threatened by land use and development, changes in freshwater inflow, manipulation of the mouths. Nationally, there's a deterioration in water quality. There are biological invasions, and also there's high intensity of resource utilization. This could be of fishing or bait collection. So we need restoration. The benefits of ecosystem restoration are increasing food and water security, contributing to climate change mitigation, alleviating the pressures of conflict and migration, and slowing further loss of species. This is, of course, all in line with the Sustainable Development Goals And basically, healthy land and seascapes is equivalent to healthy people and planet. There are 9 guiding principles for the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration. We can apply each of these to our estuaries, and particularly Principle 2 talks about a restorative continuum. Restoration includes a continuum of restorative activities. And so this continuum goes from reducing impacts, remediation, rehabilitation to ecological restoration. So it's a pathway of incremental improvement in our estuaries. And this is in line with how we manage our estuaries in terms of the Estuarine Health Index and present ecological status. So do we have any examples of restoration of estuaries in South Africa? We certainly do have very good examples of management of estuaries to improve their ecological health, their ecosystem services and their benefits they give to society. For example, here at the Zandvlei Estuary, it is managed to maintain water quality, to prevent harmful algal blooms, to maintain a certain water level so that boating and sailing activities can take place. And this occurs through artificial mouth manipulation. So the mouth is breached, saline water comes in, and it flushes the estuary. So the estuary now is in a better ecological state than it was. However, it's now a novel ecosystem because in the past it didn't open as frequently to the sea as it does now. So we're managing for a novel ecosystem to produce certain ecosystem services that we want for that system. Restoration of coastal water quality is a key theme, and we've been working on this at the Swartkops Estuary. This is a nationally important system, but it has a lot of wastewater discharge from 3 wastewater treatment plants upstream. It's an urban estuary, so there's urban and stormwater runoff, and there's movement of this pollution from the catchment through the estuary to the coast. So this provides opportunities to develop innovative methods for water quality improvement. Just to show a map of where we are, the Motherwell, the mouth, the sea, going up to the Markman Canal outlet, which is a big source of pollution. The Motherwell Canal drains a very large developed area, and then showing the Motherwell Canal outlet. And at the bottom of that outlet is a large abandoned salt pan. This shows the Motherwell Canal water. The volume of the water is equivalent to a medium-sized wastewater treatment works. This is because it's draining that large developed area. There are 14 stormwater drains that come into the system, and they flow into the estuary. An artificial wetland was developed to take up some of this runoff and to clean the pollutants, but unfortunately the capacity of the wetland cannot cope with the large volume of water coming down the Motherwell Canal. And so the abandonment of the salt pans by Cerebos was a large salt pan, productive salt pan area, but it became too expensive to maintain because of vandalism. And so the idea was now to reroute some of the Motherwell Canal water via the artificial wetland abandoned salt pan area. So this was an important restoration action to divert Motherwell Canal water to the dry salt pans, and you can see what the salt pan looked like on the right hand side. This was an opportunity to bring back some ecosystem services such as waterbird habitat, but also to use the salt pan as a water purification system to improve water quality. So overall there would be delivery of multiple ecosystem services at relatively low cost. And so this canal was excavated into the salt pan area. This is fresh water, so it was fresh water going into a highly salinized habitat. Previously, where it was a dry aquatic habitat, one now had water in the area. In response to the very high nutrients, some macroalgae grew, and these macroalgae, these filamentous green algae that you see here, they're very effective at taking up nutrients. So it acts as a large biofilter for that land runoff before it doesn't now go into the estuary, but it sits here being purified. And this also brought back waterbird habitat. So when the salt pan was dry and saline, there was a decrease in waterbird numbers, but they slowly came back to the area. So the saltworks have hosted various waterbirds in the past, and we're slowly seeing those numbers coming back. Fortunately, we have long-term historical data from Dr. Paul Martin on the birds in those areas. Not only is there ecological benefits, but there's also cultural benefits. Any improvement in water quality has cultural benefits because the people use the estuary for baptisms and cleansing ceremonies, and water quality deterioration poses a threat, a risk to human health. So thus, any improvement provides a safe environment for these activities. So the restoration activity of bringing water that was polluted into the salt pan area to improve the water quality had both ecological and cultural or societal benefits. And so when we want to understand restoration, it's important to see it as a complex socio-ecological system where we're looking at ecological health, in this case the state of the salt pan. We're relating that to what benefits, ecosystem services come from a healthy system, and how that then translates into the state of the societal system, how it influences community well-being or health or knowledge enrichment. We've also looked nationally at where to prioritize blue carbon ecosystems and their restoration. Blue carbon ecosystems, they act as sinks for carbon, and therefore they contribute to climate change mitigation. So it's important to not only protect the ecosystems that we have, but also to put actions in place to restore our blue carbon habitats, which are mangrove, seagrass, and salt marsh. So we've published on identifying salt marshes around the country that require restoration, because these are the largest areas, the larger potential habitat available for restoration. And in many cases, this restoration of salt marshes is about hydrological connectivity, returning flow into areas that have become isolated because of causeways or because of weirs and farm dams. These systems have dried out and they no longer act as carbon stores because it's the anoxic environment, the waterlogged conditions that act as a carbon sink. And so in many salt marshes around the country, we can restore hydrological connectivity, we can bring back salt marsh, and we can improve carbon storage throughout the country. We have some other restoration successes, and one such example is at the Orange River mouth, although there's still a lot of work to be done. Here, a causeway, a road was built separating the river from a dry, salinized salt marsh area, and you can see at the top picture, once this causeway and road was removed and the fresh water from the Orange River could enter, it brought in seeds, and the habitat was quickly recolonized by salt marsh plants, that nice green band that you see in that area. The sand was no longer mobile because the plants stabilized the sediment, and this allowed for salt marsh to return in some of that area. Large parts of the Orange River mouth still remain desertified and salinized, and once again it's about hydrological connectivity, bringing water back into the area. It will transport seeds, transports the plants, they revegetate, and along with that comes all the different animals. So restoration nationally provides a lot of opportunities for innovation, opportunities for transdisciplinary approaches, working across disciplines and with many different people to see this as a challenge, to do action research, implement a restoration action. In a strategic adaptive management cycle, you decide what were the benefits of that, and you improve your restoration activities. Also, restoration provides us an opportunity to celebrate conservation successes. We need to do this to ignite hope and inspire the next generation of thinkers and change makers. So there's at Generation Restoration. And we look forward to a national estuary restoration and research program where there will be action research, learning by doing approaches through a strategic adaptive management approach. Thank you to the funders and the research team and all of those who've contributed to our research activities.